Ain't no ghetto without us. Revelation 2 and 9. Tell them.
Yeah, all my brothers, yeah, we rich shock. We got the truth, we come from rich stock. That's on my tribe, I never flip-flop. Like kingdom come, now watch it TikTok. We got this truth and now we rich up. We headed back up to the tip top. Menorah golden, watch it drip drop. We in the hood, but now we rich up, yeah.
My folks stayed in the Hoovers, I was born in the trades. I was raised in the hundreds, but I ain't never joined the gang. Affiliated, I was with it, I ain't played no games. Wasn't banging, but I had to show I ain't no lame. Copperworth Entertainment, yeah, I did my thing. Until I woke up to this truth and found out we still slaves. Niggas killing over colors, time to rise up for our brothers. Time to unify our hustles, time to lead our baby mothers out to lay like Nazareth. I was raised about the gutter, for the homies I got locked up, not a word I never uttered. So for Yasharahla, yeah, you best believe I'll die. This ain't Christianity, you best believe
yeah,
I'll
all my
ride.
brothers, yeah, we rich shock. We got the truth, we come from rich stock. That's on my tribe, I never flip-flop. Like kingdom come, now watch it TikTok. We got this truth and now we rich up. We headed back up to the tip top.
We rich.
Menorah golden, watch it drip drop. We in the hood, but now we rich up, yeah.
Yeah, reclining my seats, I'm looking at the stars. Not too long ago was blowing kush about the car. Always wanted fame until I found the 12 stars. But now a nigga rich, the wisdom got me hella far. Looking back on my life, this shit is so surreal. Like I came up on the lotto, how a nigga feel. Keep the law as the motto, now tell me what's the deal. Riding smooth, diamond chain, compliment the wheels. Yeah, that's how we pull up fly. If my brothers got an issue, then I bet I ride. Even if I take a loss, you can bet I try. Cause I'ma get a couple off, and that's before
yeah,
I
all my
die,
brothers,
nigga.
yeah, we rich shock. We got the truth, we come from rich stock. That's on my tribe, I never flip-flop. Like kingdom come, now watch it TikTok. We got this truth and now we rich up. We headed back up to the tip top. Menorah golden, watch it drip drop. We in the hood, but now we rich up, yeah.
It's so cold in these streets, I take the heat outside. I keep a sword like Cephas, just believe I might. Ain't an army on this earth that can see these tribes. Dressed in warlike apparel, best believe we fly. It's time to get the doctrine right, it's time to feed these sheep. What we sowing to each other, that's what we gon' reap. Shit, you niggas claim you bout that life. Some niggas banging for the set, but I'm an Israelite. He full of pride and full of shit, then I'ma cut him on sight. IQ ain't never gotta tell me twice. I'm a soldier for Christ, and Mashiach the king is not to be mocked. I love my nation, but 2/3 of y'all can still get popped. Blah.
Desire one or reality. Yashamai, Yasharahla.
We got the truth, we come from rich stock. That's on my tribe, I never flip-flop. For kingdom come and watch it TikTok. We got the truth and now we rich up. We heading back up to the TikTok. Menorah golden, watch it drip drop. We in the hood, but now we rich up, yeah.
Not the yeah. Smooth shit. Yeah. Pull up the block spinning. New ride and my girlfriend's master presidential inside. Yeah. Ray-Bans on my eyes. We them bruised in charge. I don't know why they still be looking fucking surprise. Add fuel to my fire, take a higher than they ever seen. My life a movie and I'm living out the best scenes. They call me cocky, in reality I'm confident. And every night we taking shots to our accomplishments. Cheers. A lot of food, put it on my plate. And baby pressing not to tell her to wait. She see the signs of the times and the world is so boring. I'd rather pull out the old schools and new foreigns. Tell me what you want, I'll tell you what you need. Them other niggas stuck, Bruce took the lead. I'm teaching on them streets that I used to run. And afterwards chilling with my Aki on. What's up? Jake's claiming that they own. And they crew is legit. Yeah. I see the things that they doing when they do it, but they don't do it like this. Not at all. Niggas say that they the bomb, and they really be lit. What? I see the things that they doing when they do it, but they don't do it like this. Straight game, money over fame. Put it in accounts, double the amount on some Oprah shit. On occasion we be toasting, and what I'm sipping now the same color as the ocean is. Ride slow with the beat up, sister got her feet up. Head wrap with a skirt on when we meet up. It's really a play, my vibe reading South Central LA. And yeah, we got it cracking from the streets to the bay. All praises to Yahweh when I kneel and I pray, knowing it's all good. I teach truth and spread light in the hood, doing exactly what we want, they only do what they could. Common sense is genius dressed in his working clothes. It's like I work and work more, y'all just working clothes. A lot of bad attitudes and some broken souls. The city of fallen angels, guess that's how it goes. Damn. Jake's claiming that they own. And they crew is legit. I bet. I see the things that they doing when they do it, but they don't do it like this. Niggas say that they the bomb, and they really be lit. I see the things that they doing when they do it, but they don't do it like this. True Nation.
Shalom, shalom, Israel. Welcome back to another edition of Bible Basics. My name is SHAMAR, and to my right,
Brother Yatab.
Brother Yatab. So tonight we are going to be going over preparing, right? So a lot of different aspects of what really goes into preparation. I know, well, you know what, I'm just gonna, there's a number of different ways that you can look at it, right? I know oftentimes when I think of preparing, and I think a lot of people think of prepping, it's about doomsday prepping, about, bunkers and food reserves and things like that. But there are also other aspects that I think the scriptures highlight that are important to take into consideration. So let's start off with Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11. We're going to start at verse 7.
Book of Hebrews, chapter 11, and verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen, as yet moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith.
So, prepared is in there, right? But it starts with faith and it ended with faith. By faith, when Noah was warned, even though he didn't see those things yet, right? It wasn't raining as of yet. It was not, the flood waters weren't rising to where he saw the level of priority that it should be. But he had faith to be able to understand the Most High was guiding him and giving him proper instructions to prepare. And then it says, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Go ahead.
By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went.
And Abraham, again, by the faith that he had to literally uproot from everything that he, that was familiar to him. He was uprooting from family and friends' familiarity to go in a place that he didn't even know where it was that he was going. But he had the faith to be able to do so. Go ahead.
By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise.
Let's go over to Genesis chapter 41. So you see, and then that's another aspect of preparation. But ultimately, it really goes down to, or boils down to, having the faith in the Most High and having that humility to be able to be moved. Because I think oftentimes we become, we start to become less malleable. We start to become less moving because of what we're prepared to do or what we feel like we're prepared to do, or the Most High has something totally different prepared for you. And this is what it is that you're going to be, or this is what you're going to do. Genesis 41, let's start at verse 53 down to 57.
I thought you said 21.
41.
41, and you said starting what verse?
53.
All right. Genesis chapter 41 and verse 53. And in the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended.
So getting in context, this story was Joseph in Egypt, right? And so Joseph had been locked up at this point. There was so many different things that he went through from his brethren, but at this point he was jailed. He was thrown in prison. And Pharaoh had a dream, and he was troubled by it, so they were trying to seek what it was that this dream meant. Finally, Joseph was brought in. He explained the dream. It means that there's going to be 7 years of plenteous in the land, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine. Go ahead.
And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands. But in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he said to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt.
So the only reason why Egypt was able to survive the way that it did and people were able to come and buy was because Joseph was prepared. While there were 7 years of everything was coming in, everything was plenteous, he took a percentage of that and stored it up and just kept storing and storing and storing. Now there's 7 years of famine. Well, Joseph was already prepared. So when everybody's coming to him trying to look for a solution, he said, okay, let's open the storehouses. I've been waiting for this, right? So there are aspects of preparation in that sense that are showed in the scriptures, preparing, building structures, preparing food, preparing for, hard times. The scriptures even say in adversity, you don't remember prosperity, and in prosperity, you don't remember adversity. But there are a lot more, there's a lot of other things outside of these things that we need to be prepared for. especially when it comes to spiritually. Because most of the time, when you look in the scriptures, there aren't too many people that fell because they were unable to do something physically. Man was unable to run, to carry a message fast enough. I don't really see that. I see people who became stubborn or people who became rebellious. I see people who lost faith. I see people who, it was always something within their spirit that the Most High rejected them, as opposed to something that was physical that that they just couldn't let go of. Even as far as, let's go over to Luke chapter 17. Even as far as David, right? I always look at that story and I'm blown away, because when Samuel, which was the prophet Samuel, he went to Jesse's house, which was the father of David. He said, man, the Most High sent me here. One of your sons is going to become king. He's like, okay, this is my first son. Look at him. And Samuel even said within himself, he's like, oh, that's got to be him. Look at him. Most High was like, man, I don't see as man sees. That's not him. He went through all his sons, and he said, there's nobody else. His dad didn't even bring him out to be considered as this is going to be the king. He said, there's David. He back there with the sheep. You talking about David? You want me to go get David? He said, yeah, go get David. And when David presented himself, the Most High spoke to Samuel. That's him. So he was literally not even considered. Didn't the scripture say the same thing in Isaiah with Christ? It said that they considered him, abandoned pretty much of the Most High. And lo and behold, that's who the Most High was with the most. Luke 17, let's start at verse 1.
Luke chapter 17 and verse 1. Then said he unto the disciples, it is impossible, but that offenses will come. But woe unto him through whom they come.
He said offenses have to happen. That's one of the things that I feel like, first and foremost, obviously, all our lives we go believing that we're African American, we're Negro, we're Latino, we're, Salvadorian, Guadalupan, and all these different countries with all these different names. So we go through all of our lives believing that. Then when we finally come into the truth, we figure like all our problems are over. Everything has been solved. Everything is going to be 100% better from this point. But Christ said, offenses have to come. It is impossible. Like, for a fact that there are going to be offenses. He said, but woe, which means destruction unto him through whom they come. Go ahead.
It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones.
So one of the things that shows is, yes, there are going to be offenses, but you don't want to be the person who's offending. So that should automatically put in your mind to have a certain level of consideration in everything that you're doing. How is this going to affect someone? How is this going to influence the next person that's either behind me or that's watching, right? Go ahead.
Take heed to yourselves. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him. And if he repent, forgive him.
Go ahead.
And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him.
That's difficult, right? But that's something that we have to be prepared to be able to do, to humble ourselves to actually receive somebody in their repentance, in their apologies, in the things of which they're going to do, right? Let's go over to Sirach chapter 2. Sirach chapter 2, and we can start at verse 1. Turn this fan on. Ooh.
The book of Sirach, chapter 2, and verse 1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation.
That's the first. He said, if you come to serve the Lord, prepare your soul for temptation. Temptation can come in so many different ways, right? It's literally any aspect or anything that you struggle with is going to be presented in your face, because there are so many different things that we're shown within the scriptures. Not everything is thou shalt or thou shalt not. It also says if your brother offends you, you got to go talk to him, make it right. You have to forgive them. There's a whole lot of things that are going to be a temptation unto you, right? So he said, now you have to prepare your soul for temptation, right? Those things are going to come in all different ways. If you had an anger issue in the world, guess what? Your anger is going to get tested. If you had a problem stealing in the world, guess what? It's going to be some things that are tantalizing or some opportunities you're going to see, and you have to be prepared to say, I'm not going to do this under any circumstance, whether I can get away with it in the sight of men, because I know I'm not going to get away with it with the Most High. You got to prepare your soul for the trials that are going to come upon you, because those are the things that are really going to make you or break you. And I think everybody has that, right? The story as old as time. We love seeing it in the movies. The hero gets beat down. They breathing hard, and they don't, it looks like the fight is over, and somehow they manage to rise to their feet. And everybody loves to see it, but that's literally what's required. That's literally what we find ourselves doing sometimes on a day-to-day basis, but that's what we find ourselves doing so often to be able to rise above with all the things that we experience. Go ahead.
Set thy heart aright and constantly endure,
Uh-huh.
and make not haste in time of trouble.
He says, set your heart aright. So make those decisions and draw those lines within yourself, setting your heart aright. And then he said, and constantly endure, and don't make haste in time of trouble. You can move, we've been talking about like how in the moment you can react emotionally, right? You can react in a certain way and make a quick move. And that's exactly why, as he said, set your heart aright and prepare your soul for temptation. Because if you have it in your mind, oh, every time somebody gets me, I'm going to get them back. Every time I feel this way, oh, no, I'm not going down. I'm going to be the one to. Then next thing you know, you mess around and sit up here and make haste in a time of trouble. You're speaking from a place of anger, speaking from a place of pain. You offend people. You disrespect people. You destroy relationships. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Go ahead.
And make not haste in time of trouble.
Uh-huh.
Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased in thy last end.
And you see a whole lot of examples of that in the scriptures, right? You see, look at Job, for example. All the hell that he went through. He lost all of his kids. Not one, but I think he had, 7 children? 7 kids. And he lost them all on the same day. And while the servant who told him about the 7 came and was speaking to him, another servant ran up out of breath. Oh man, all your camels just got stolen. Or I think some of the animals died, some of them got stolen. I can't remember which one was which. But he lost everything. Then they like, man, all your oxen too, that's all gone. Another servant runs up, all the donkeys, another one, all the camels. It was like everything that he had fell apart immediately in the same day, and there was no time to process. One servant after another. It said literally as the previous servant was done, before he was done speaking, another one came running. So it's like, man, but ultimately, look at Job's end. Then he ended up having double the kids, double the animals, double the substance. He was increased at his last end, but that was because he cleaved to the Most High. While everybody else was giving him advice and everybody else was convinced that they understood his situation, he was like, look, I really don't know why this is happening. I'm looking for the Most High, I can't find him. But he chose to fast and pray and to repent, sit down and be in ashes. He chose to cleave to the Most High. Even if men didn't understand him, sure enough, the Most High elevated him. Go ahead.
Verse 4, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate.
And we go through a lot. Whatever is brought upon you, you have to take it cheerfully. It doesn't mean that you literally going to sit up here and like get the lights cut off and just laugh about it, though sometimes we do laugh about it. But it's really talking about whatever it is that happens, still have that cheerfulness, right? Still have that element of choosing to be happy, because that's ultimately what it is. It says, and be patient when you are changed to a low estate. Don't get upset or angsty or just constantly try to seek to be free, so to speak, as you understand it, because the Most High is oftentimes, like you said, acceptable men are proved in the furnace. Heat, fire. Don't consider it strange concerning the fiery trial that is to try you. It's going to be fire. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be pretty much constant. And it's going to be until you're to a place of perfection or until you pass on from this mortal form. But you have to be prepared up front to say, you know what? This is what the Most High requires. This is what it is. This is what this walk is. And look at how many other prophets, look at the things they were asked to do. Isaiah was told to walk naked for years. Naked. Like, Abraham told to move. Noah told to build an ark. Jonah sent to a city he was unfamiliar with to tell them to repent. People were sent before kings. People were sent before servants. There's so many different things. And not everybody's going to be a prophet to that capacity, but in your role, you still might be asked to do the impossible. Look how Paul was shipwrecked multiple times. He didn't say, man, last time I hit the water, man, we was out there for like a day and a half. I'm not getting on another boat. Whoever it is that's over there on that land, I'm not going over there to teach the gospel. He got shipwrecked, I think, like, what, 3 times? But he was prepared. He was like, man, whatever it is, whatever it costs, I'm going to pay it because I got to make it to this kingdom. And that's ultimately the goal and the mindset that we have to adopt. You know, they have a saying like that even in the world. Find something that you love and let it kill you. Now, we read about the scriptures telling us to die daily. That's literally what this requires. You find this, fall in love with these scriptures, fall in love with the Most High and what's really required, and just keep letting it form you and build you until the old you is no longer even present. That's what it means to find something and let it kill you. Go ahead.
Verse 5, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity.
Adversity is just chaos, just uncomfortable. It could be, you could be going through adversity in so many different ways, but that's the way that you're proven. They say that adversity strengthens the mind the way physical exercise strengthens the body. You literally have to go through those things. How are you going to reason? If you go broke, are you going to steal? Or does thou shalt not steal prioritize what you feel like you need? If you feel betrayed or you're angry, are you about to sit up here and just start swinging on people, or be angry and sin not is going to be your priority? If you're offended, are you going to have it in your heart that your brother is now your enemy, or are you going to Matthew 18 it? That's the adversity that we literally have to go through in order to be proven. Okay, you know what? Just like how Abraham, he told him, go sacrifice your son. But didn't Christ say, he that loveth mother, father, son, daughter, you love anybody more than me, you're not worthy of me? Okay, well, let me see what Abraham is worth. Go sacrifice your son on the mountain. I can't even imagine what that must have taken for him to be walking up that mountain. That wasn't like some instant they was at the top of the mountain. Where's the sacrifice? Abraham knew the whole time they were walking up. Even Isaac was like, Dad, where's the lamb? We're going to make a sacrifice, right? He's like, yeah, son, we're going to make a sacrifice when we get to the top. Where's the lamb? Don't we need a lamb? Most High is going to provide it. But he was willing to give that up. So it's like, man, the level of sacrifice, but that's being acceptable, getting tried to that level, to get tried and still remain faithful. And it requires a lot. And if we're not there now, that's the goal, that we build up to that level. Not everybody is Moses. Not everybody's Paul. Not everybody's Christ. There are only one of each that I read about in the scriptures, but there are a lot of men whose names may not be mentioned that still had this level. Like, for example, Mattathias had 3,000 that was with him right before his final battle. 2,200 of them fled, but 800 chose to stay behind and die with him. We don't read 800 names, but those are honorable men who gave their lives for their laws and their people. That's the level of that. That's what I always try to aspire to be. Even if I don't have a book or a name or anything like that, if it could just be, I was one of the 800, if I was in that kind of scenario and I went down the way that I say I would and the way that I aspire to, I'm satisfied. Read on.
Verse 6. Believe in him, and he will help thee. Order thy way aright, and trust in him.
He said, believe in him and order your way aright. Make sure that you're moving right, and then you can trust him and make sure that you trust him at that point. Go ahead.
Ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and go not aside, lest ye fall.
Go ahead.
Ye that fear the Lord, believe him, and your reward shall not fail. Ye that fear the Lord, hope for good, and for everlasting joy and mercy.
So he keeps saying, ye that fear the Lord, because that's what really boils down to, right? What do you value? What do you value, and what are you going to adhere to? Some things, just like the scriptures say, a friend cannot be known in prosperity. That's why even Satan was like, well, of course Job fears you. Look at everything that you've given him. Of course he's going to be your friend. But let me touch him, and I bet. And look at all the hell that Job went through, all at the same time. And he still chose to be faithful because he feared the Most High more than he feared anything else. Go ahead.
Verse 10, look at the generations of old and see. Did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him?
And that's another thing that we have to really kind of, we have to battle within ourselves. Sometimes like, man, am I going through this hell because of sins I committed in the past, whether it be in the world or understanding the truth? Or is this really the Most High building me? What is this? What is going to be the end? He said, but look, Look at the generations of old. That's why we have scriptures. That's why we have stories. That's why these things are immortalized. And it's not just the rules and regulations. It's stories and examples as well. So you can read about, Job and his tribulation. You can read about Abraham and his story. You can read about Joseph. Look at the hell that he went through, being betrayed by his own biological brethren. First, they was going to kill him. Then, oh, no, we ain't going to kill him, but we going to sell him into slavery. Can you imagine you sitting up here watching your own brothers tie you up? You remember that as you're being carried away. You go into a land, you don't know what they're going to do with you. You hoping it's nothing too vile. Then they set you up, they make you a servant, you get in prison. I mean, just all the things that he went through. But ultimately, he was exalted. He ended up being second in command of all of Egypt. What is that saying? Couldn't ask him for nothing, but now I'm the one that they count on. That was Joseph. He wasn't able to ask for nothing. They was insulted every time he got something. Sure enough, then he was able to give his family land. Not just here goes some corn and I appreciate, I got a little business. No, he gave them the best of the land only because he endured and maintained his righteousness and because he was prepared. All those things that had to happen to him. So this is about preparing for our walk. All the things that we have to face or that we might be called upon to face. Give me verse 11.
Verse 11. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy, long-suffering, and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins, and saveth in time of affliction.
Says the Most High said, he's full of compassion and mercy. He's patient. He's very pitiful, which is like understanding and considerate, and he forgives sins. That's the beauty in it. Let's go over to 2 Thessalonians. It's not like when we make a mistake, or rather, not every mistake is immediately, that's it. I believe the scriptures say if that was the case, we would all be consumed, right? But we have that space for mercy, and we have that space to be able to repent to the Most High, to be forgiven, and still to come out of the hell that we have to endure as a result of those things. 2 Thessalonians 2, let's get verse 10 through 12.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 10. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they shall believe a lie.
Go ahead, down to verse 12.
That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
That had pleasure in unrighteousness. So all those things happen. And the reason, now I know that might be like, well, how are these connected? What is this? Pleasure and unrighteousness. That's one of the things that we have to prepare for. I feel like oftentimes first coming into the truth, we haven't known the Most High 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And so oftentimes we can easily become more focused on men than the Most High because we're just now getting to know the Most High. We're more so focused on what men think, and we take pleasure in unrighteousness. It's not as hard trying to endure when you're in the world and porn is pushed and it's constant and it's everywhere and it's acceptable. But now you come into the truth and those things are no longer acceptable. But if that's where you have pleasure, that's what's going to destroy you slowly but surely. If you like to gossip, when you was in the world, you had all the tea, right? Now you come into the truth and you see, don't walk up and forth, up and down amongst your people as a talebearer. That's something you have to fight. You cannot take pleasure in unrighteousness because one way or another, that temptation is going to find its way to rear its ugly head. One way or another, it's going to find its way back into being a part of who you are, and it's only going to stain you the more that you allow it to be a part of your spirit. So he said, that's why he said that they all might be damned because they didn't believe the truth. We know that the law is the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. That's why Paul said, I die daily. You don't think it was plenty of things that Paul wanted to be doing? Not even just getting paid, but even as far as, desires that are befitting to a man. Desires that are befitting to someone that's gone through so much, whatever the case may be. But he still chose rather to die within himself than to take pleasure in unrighteousness, even being in that power, right? Let's go over to 2 Timothy. I'm hoping, I know I'm going to bounce around a lot, but I'm hoping that as we continue in the lesson, it's going to all make sense. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3.
Book of 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ.
You have to be prepared for enduring hardness. Go ahead.
No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier.
So whether you have armor and ARs, guns and bombs and all those kinds of things, you're a soldier. We're all soldiers. We have different roles as a soldier, but we're all soldiers because this is a spiritual war. That's why it's constant. I don't think that there's a lot of peace in war. I don't think that you find a whole lot of comfort or a whole lot of peace. It's a lot of things that are triggering. It's a lot of you have no assurance that you're going to, come back and those kinds of things. So he said you literally cannot entangle yourself with the affairs of this life. And that's oftentimes what throws people off. You remember in Matthew chapter 19, the young man that came to Christ. Good master, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? He said, man, keep the commandments. First he said, don't call me good, only the Most High is good. He said, keep the commandments. He said, like which ones? Like these. Okay, well, I've been doing that since my youth. He said, all right, you really want to be perfect? Go and sell everything that you have. Give it to the poor and then come and follow me. And he walked away sorrowful because he knew he wasn't willing to do that. Why? Because he's entangled in the affairs of this life. You mean to tell me I worked so hard to be able to get this? I worked so hard to get into this position. I finally have all the physical things that I want. Setting my house up the way that I wanted. I got all the camels the way that I wanted them. I wanted this special Persian camel, and I got to go sell all these things. But he put his trust in his riches and in what the things that he could see on this earth, as opposed to saying, man, you know what? People might not agree with my decision. Some people might even be mad or hate me. But I want to follow the king more than I care about their opinions. But that's why you can't get too entangled with the affairs of this life, because then you'll start prioritizing what's in this life as opposed to what's to come. We know we have a kingdom coming. We know that there is a kingdom being prepared for the righteous of Israel. We know these things. So then why is it still so difficult for us to fight and war against this flesh? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Oftentimes because we're entangled with the affairs of this life. Verse 5.
Verse 5, and if a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully.
Except he strive lawfully. Let's go over to Philippians 2 and 12. So it says we're striving for masteries, right? That's what makes, you can tell when someone has a passion for something, right? It's a little different than how someone else might do things. Like when you look at Kobe, right? One of the greatest. He had a passion. He was always dedicated. He was given more than even the greats were given. He was a great of the greats. Practicing when everybody else was asleep. Getting up when everybody else wanted to rest. Skipping the parties, skipping the fun, skipping things. But then look at how much more successful he was than all of the other greats and all of his counterparts. And pushing his teammates. Come on, man, you got to get up. You want to be great? This is what you got to do. He was striving for masteries. So we have to do that same thing within this truth. But we have to strive lawfully. It's not going to mean anything if you the most disciplined, excellent, righteous, or disciplined and excellent, but then you're a fornicator. It's not going to mean anything if you're the most disciplined and excellent, but you have the mentality of a Pharisee. Because the Pharisees, the crazy part about it is, and I've said this before, Christ was killed by Sabbath-observing, fringe-wearing Israelites. Like, can you imagine? You look out into the audience, you see beards. You would think you see white folks and Romans. No, he saw beards and fringes in the audience, condemning him, calling for his death. Like, they wasn't striving lawfully, but they strove. What I have, Philippians 2 and 12.
Book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse 12. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
You have to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Of course, there's a lot of aspects that go into other people, but ultimately it boils down to you have to make sure that you're saving yourself. You have to make sure that your salvation is a priority the same way that helping is a priority, the same way that building is a priority, and ultimately that you're putting those things outside of your own spirit, cleansing your own tabernacle where the Most High can dwell with you the same way that you're preparing the body for the Most High to dwell in them. That's an important part. You have to work out your own salvation, right? Let's go back to Sirach, chapter 19. This is exactly what I'm talking about as far as like getting rid of those things within yourself. Because what is it going to profit if you sitting up here, you educating, you teaching? Because the scriptures say there's one that's he teaches, he does all these things, but he's not profitable to himself. 19 and verse 5.
Sirach chapter 19 and verse 5.
Uh-huh.
Whoso taketh pleasure in wickedness shall be condemned, but he that resisteth pleasures crowneth his life.
Resisting pleasures. Why? Because it's so easy. The world puts it, it's constant that every bit of wickedness, there's a pleasure to be taken in it. In pagan holidays, in fornication, and going to the club, and living lasciviously. Oh, hold on. Lavishly. Living with lasciviousness. All these different things that the world teaches and promotes for us to be able to do, and they teach that that's fun. I remember being young, I'm talking about a kid, prior to knowing the truth, and I would hear people after so-called New Year's talking about, man, we had so much fun, man, we blacked out. I was like, damn, like you don't remember nothing, and that was fun? You don't even remember what kind of night you had. How is that the big finale that you're supposed to be living? But that's the pleasure in unrighteousness. Take pleasure in drunkenness. Take pleasure in the fornication. Take pleasure in the wickedness. Take pleasure in the disrespect and blasphemy of the Most High. All these different things the world is constantly teaching us and promoting to us. But he said, look, the only way that you're going to be able to make it, you got to not take pleasure in that wickedness. That's why he said, abhor sin vehemently. You got to hate it, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to avoid it. If you see something you're still somewhat entertained, somewhat still drawn in, it's only going to be a matter of time, or rather, if you choose not to resist or shut it down, it's only going to be a matter of time. Things are, most of the time, choices. You don't think when they were sitting at the table, Yahushua said, look, the one that's going to betray me, he's here. You don't think Judas had a choice at that point? Man, I'm not going to do this. You don't think that the prophets who obeyed, they didn't have a choice to not obey? The only one that I see, well, I ain't going to say he got forced, but he chose to finally come to his senses was Jonah. He was about to go the opposite direction, got swallowed by some type of sea creature, and when he came out, he was like, man, I don't even want to, whatever it is that you need me to do, I'm getting on the first ticket to Nineveh. I'm going to go do what I said, what you told me to do. But you literally cannot take the pleasure in unrighteousness. Let's go over to Sirach chapter 25. Because this is a big one, right? Israel with the tongue. And this is not something that's new to Israel. This is something that's been as old as Israel itself, right? You see Miriam and Aaron speaking against Moses. You see people that spoke against prophets. You see people that disrespected and denied Christ. You see people, who were slanderers. You see people that were gossiping. You see those things since way back. So it's not like we're dealing with spirits that are just so foreign to Israel because we're just in Babylon. But now you see it a lot more. It's being promoted. Promiscuity is being promoted. All these things where it's perfectly fine. And it's easy to get wrapped up in it if you take pleasure in those things. Start at verse 8.
Book of Sirach, chapter 25, and verse 8.
Uh-huh.
Well is him that dwelleth with the wife of understanding,
Uh-huh.
and that hath not slipped with his tongue,
Uh-huh.
and that hath not served a man more unworthy than himself.
So all those different things. Now there's two big things that stand out to me in this scripture, right? He says, you haven't slipped with your tongue, and you haven't served a man more unworthy than yourself. Go to Sirach 6 and 2. Slipping with your tongue is something that I think that all Israel, it's something that we do. You know, you see it constantly being promoted with the BET movies. You saw the movie Precious, how verbally abusive her mother was to her, how much damage that she was doing. She was a reviler, right? Constantly doing those things. Sirach 6 and 2. And then when it says, when it says not a man more unworthy than himself, you got to be careful who you consider to be unworthy, because we can't really judge intents. And I know sometimes certain people it's hard to advocate for because they're on BS, saying it for what it is. But ultimately, I still try to be careful, give you some kind of benefit of the doubt, because what if that's not the case? There were a lot of men who were of the Most High that were doubted, but there's also been wicked that were condemned. Oftentimes, they look the same to a lot of people, especially those that are taking pleasure in unrighteousness. So you have to also have that humility about yourself, and oftentimes it can't be self-proclaimed. Read verse 2.
Sirach chapter 6 and verse 2. Extol not thyself in the counsel of thine own heart, that thy soul be not torn in pieces as a bull straying alone.
He said extol means to praise highly or glorify. So if I sit up here like I've been under this brother's leadership, right? I've listened to him, I've taken advice, I've been taught by him. If I sit up here and say, who is that? Oh, because he do this or he do that, or oh, because he a bishop, because he... If you sit up here and praise yourself in your own mind, it's easy to come into that kind of mindset and be quickly on the wrong end of the spectrum, standing against men that the Most High does feel that way about. Because he felt that way about Moses. He didn't appreciate when people was talking about, he's like, hey, Moses, man, I hear them talking. Separate yourself. All right, well, boom, ground open up. People get swallowed up. Closes back. All right, now keep going. Like, man, wait a minute. Most High was rolling with him. Like, you better be careful by the way that you treating and talking to Moses. You better be careful in the way that you treating and talking to his prophets, to his anointed. Be careful with those things. But you also have to be careful with the way that you viewing people, because the scriptures, even when there are feeble members, the scriptures say the feeble members are the more necessary. It's so easy for people to count people out. You know, you have a lot of brothers, and that's a straight prideful spirit. And it's mistakes that we've made because we've seen these things and reciprocated these things as well. But that's why we understand, at least that's why we've come to understand how wrong it is, because you can sit up here and judge somebody, a whole lot of people, y'all camp is going to fall by the end of this year. Oh, well, that wasn't a prophet. That wasn't sent from the Most High. Hey, that was a word that was spoken as if the Most High told you to speak it, and that wasn't correct. Oh, that brother ain't got too many years left. Look at him. And then you becoming this, you extolling yourself, feeling like you're so righteous, you're so mighty, you're so capable that you're going to write somebody off. That's not the case. And that's really not the spirit of the Most High. Because you can't judge the intents of the heart. That's the important part. And that goes both ways. Not only with giving benefit of the doubt to someone who might appear wicked, but also when someone's doing right. You really don't know. So it's like, man, let me walk carefully. Learn those things. And that's why I said the scriptures give us balance, but these are all things that we have to be prepared for. These are all things that we have to take into consideration because they're guidelines and guardrails for you to not lose your salvation and for you to not offend. You know what's an example of extolling yourself in your own counsel? The Pharisee, right? There was a Pharisee who was praying, and you know what I'm saying? And there was a publican there, right? And he was like, man, his whole prayer was about like disrespecting the publican. Thank you, Most High, that I'm not like this man. He over there praying and this, and that, but I give tithes and pay, what do you say, offerings and coming. I'm not like this man. And the Most High was like, Christ had spoken, was like, man, I like this man, the publican, who's not, because keeping in consider or taking in mind, or you know what I'm trying to say, keep in mind, taking into consideration, a publican was someone who was not socially acceptable. That wasn't a very socially acceptable position to be in, while a Pharisee was a very socially acceptable position to be in. So one looks good in the sight of man, while the other is rejected of men. But Christ was like, I don't care about your occupation. The scriptures say the Most High is not a man that he has respect of persons. He said, look, I like him. You know why? He said he ain't lifted up his head the whole time he's been praying, smiting himself in his chest, saying, have mercy upon me, a sinner. That's the type of humility that we have to have in order to make it. He's not extolling himself in his own counsel. Sometimes, and I wrote this, so I'm going to read it for what it is and then elaborate. Sometimes our thoughts are wrong, and you can be hurt or trying to get revenge, which is wrong, and the whole time it was your own insecurity or trust issues. One of the ways that happens, right, we go through all these different things, and this is something that I feel like all of Israel needs to understand and learn as well. Rob, I don't know if you in the back, if you can see the camera. This is one of the things that we need to understand and learn as well. When it's talking about, you know, we've been in the world all our lives, right? It's no secret that Israel lives a rough life. We're under the curses. We go through all these different difficulties. So lucky everybody that's online. The camera's coming back on right now. We go through all these different difficulties. You're not going to tell me after 20 years of being betrayed, you sat up here and was lied to and betrayed as a child, you got older, you came into the truth, you had those things happen to you, and now your judgment is completely outside of the lens of your experiences. That's unrealistic. You have to be able to thwart out. You have to be able to say, to not extol yourself in your own counsel, to say, nah, I know what this person's doing. Because you know how that works? It's something as simple as this. Let's just say, what's an example? It's crazy because we've been talking about this literally all day. Literally, like something as simple as you ever felt like somebody threw a shot at you when they was talking, but they're not talking to you, but you feel like they talked about you? Something as simple as that, right? Because why? It could be, now don't get me wrong, sometimes that happens, and some people do get a kick out of it. Hey, you see what this You be like, man, you know what I'm saying? Hey, that's gonna be that's gonna be something that person has to work out. But sometimes it really might be like, man, I'm going through financial troubles. I wasn't able to get a fresh shirt. Hey, man, that's a nice shirt. It looks seasoned. Oh, what does that mean? You trying to say like, nah, I really felt like maybe I was looking at you more than the shirt. I don't know. It looked like it's got some experience. I don't mean that to be a shot. But if you sitting up here extolling yourself in your own counsel, you know everything and everyone's intents of their hearts, and you know exactly what's happening, and I know what that. You sitting up here doing a whole lot of extolling within yourself as opposed to actually applying scriptures. And that's the crazy part, or not even the crazy part. Let's go to Matthew 18. That's the beauty in the scriptures. All of the things that we deal with, all of the complications that we feel that we experience, there's already a solution written in the scriptures. You got a problem with the Jake? Hey, man, I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, because don't the scriptures, matter of fact, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm going to read these, but just listen to these next couple of scriptures, because I tried to put them in an order to where they all relate. Let's start at verse 15.
Matthew chapter 18 and verse 15.
Uh-huh.
Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone.
Thee and him alone. So don't make it a public spectacle to where you want to, everybody gather around and you see a crowd coming. Now you want to talk a little extra loud about that money you owe me, Ak. You and him, right? Go ahead.
If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother.
And if he hears you, then you've gained a brother. That's when you get those deep conversations of understanding and compassion. Oh, man, I never understood where you was coming from. I never understood why you had this aspect of your personality, but I had no idea you had gone through these things. Man, I never knew that that's why you were being affected the way that you're affected. Man, glad you came and talked to me. Go ahead.
But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established.
So then you take 1 or 2 more. Hey, I've had an opportunity to talk to the brother. He feels like I'm tripping. I don't think that I am. What do y'all say? And then hear the words, hear the responses. Yeah, you wrong. Go ahead.
And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican.
And that's what extolling yourself in your own counsel leads to. You're not willing to hear anybody. You're not willing to be corrected. You're so full of your own pride that you literally can't receive anything. Then it's like, man, if you sitting up here, you have a room full of people. I don't care if your congregation is 10 people. I don't care if it's 10,000 people. You have this many people telling you that you're wrong, and you still just trying to say, damn, it must be something that they don't understand. That must be something, I don't know. Mic test. Mic test. If you get a chance, can you bring us out some batteries? Mic test, mic test. And that's why the scriptures, you can write down Hebrews 13 and 16. It says to do good and communicate, forget not. Those things are still very much so necessary. Oftentimes there's a lack of understanding because there's a lack of communication. You don't understand someone. You don't understand why they did what they did. You become frustrated. You want to avoid the problem, so now you just going to work out what you think it is yourself. That's not the right way to move. But listen, you have to be prepared to have these kinds of conversations, to face these difficult moments. You have to be, and you know what you have to be? Prepared to forgive. You got to be prepared for all of those things. But this is all spiritual. It's so much more, it's so much more than being prepared as far as physically being prepared for what you can see and understand, but mostly preparing your spirit. Let's go to Sirach chapter 19. We're going to read 15 through 17.
Book of Sirach, chapter 19, in verse 15. Admonish a friend, for many times it is a slander, and believe not every tale. There is one that slippeth in his speech, but not from his heart.
Uh-huh.
And who is he that hath not offended with his tongue?
I'm sorry, can we start at verse 13?
Verse 13. Admonish a friend. It may be he have not done it.
So the first thing is, it may be that he had not done it. Oh, he trying to be funny and wooty wooty. You're like, nah, I really meant that. Or, man, I wasn't even paying attention, but I definitely didn't mean to disrespect you. I love you. Why would I sit up here and do this and do that to you? It may be that he had not done it, but you can become convinced looking through the lens of what you've experienced and what you think, and the world is out to get you. And it may be that he has not even done it. And that's why I say, but then you know what what's important before you get to that point? Be angry, but sin not. Because you sit up here extolling yourself in your own counsel, convinced that this person has a problem with you or you have a problem with them now, sitting up here slandering them, disrespecting them, throwing shots back out to get them because you think they out to get you. Then it ends up being you finally go and talk to this person and they ain't even do it. Go ahead.
And if ye have done it, that he do it no more.
Can we start there from the top? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And if he have done it, that he do it no more.
And if he has done it, then he's not going to do it again because that's what that's a brother. Everybody, it's just like a coach with a team. Some players you can, man, get your, you cuss them out, you can deal with them a certain way. Some, they're a little more sensitive. You got to kind of, come on, man, I know you're tired, but I need you to dig deep within yourself and make these last 4 buckets. Different people have different approaches. Go ahead.
Admonish thy friend. It may be he have not said it. And if he have, that he speak it not again.
It might even be that he didn't say it. And if he has said it and it was like, man, you know what? Nah, I apologize for that. That was my intention or whatever the case may be. But forgive me. Go ahead.
Admonish a friend, for many times it is a slander. And believe not every tale.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sorry. 14. Admonish thy friend. It may be he have not said it. And if he have, that he speak it not again.
Con, drop down to verse 16.
Verse 16. There's one that slippeth in his speech, but not from his heart. And who is he that have not offended with his tongue?
So that sometimes you do find yourself in that place. Hey, let's keep it real. I think we've all had bad days, came home into whatever type of environment it was that you had at home, and it was a little more tense than usual, so you might obviously be showing that anger and that aggressiveness in other ways. Slip with your tongue, but not from your heart. I didn't mean that. I had a bad day, had a rough day, man. This went wrong, that went wrong, all this is going wrong. Yeah, my bad. Forgive me, right? It says, and who is it that hasn't offended with his tongue? Who hasn't said something or slipped up? So if you're the one who's offended, you can't be, I ain't never going to forget this person. I ain't going to never. So you've never slipped up with your tongue. You've never had this issue. You've never done that. Forgive this person to be able to move forward. But these are the things that I'm saying, like, we look at preparation as far as storehouses and corn, and absolutely those things are important because we see the balances being given in the scriptures, but these are the things that we really need to prepare for. Prepare your spirit. Prepare yourself for what this walk is going to entail, because all these things, at one point or another, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have to apply the scriptures, not just the thou shalt and the thou shalt not. You come in the Sabbath class, you're wearing your fringes, you got on your dress, you're growing your beard, you're doing this, you're doing that. When you get offended, what are you going to do? You got to deal with it. Be prepared. You have to go through these things. That's why the law is given, and that's why it goes into things like this and in such detail, because I really look at the scriptures like a father giving instruction to his son, to his kids. This is like game. Everybody want to be put up on game. This is game. This is the ultimate game. This is all the advice, the counsel, and things that you need to be able to understand if you want to seek salvation. But you got to be prepared to walk this walk. Let's get, this one is kind of a separate one, right? Because Proverbs 13:10 says, only by pride cometh contention. Let's deal with fear and doubt, right? I might come back to those, I might not. Dealing with fear and doubt, Sirach chapter 2. All of these things are things that you're going to experience or that you're going to endure. Because like the scriptures say, the temptation that has befallen us is not like it's foreign to have fallen upon man. You're not going to be the only person that has some level of doubt. You're not going to be the only person that has some level of fear. You're not going to be the only person that has some level of something that you still have to kill off within yourself. But if you prepare for this walk and say, you know what, I'm ready to do this. This is what I'm going to dedicate myself to. Then you'll find your way through it, one way or another, season after season, adversity after adversity, trial after trial. You'll find your way through it. 2 and 13.
Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 13. Woe unto him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not. Therefore shall he not be defended.
It says, and your fear, I'm sorry, read that again.
Woe unto him that is faint-hearted,
Faint-hearted.
for he believeth not. Therefore shall he not be defended.
You faint-hearted, right? And it says that they believe not. Oftentimes we have faith, but what starts to kill that faith and kill that spirit is sin. What starts to cause our faith to fall off and to wane, sin. The things that we know we could be getting right, but we're not doing. The things that we know we could be given. That's why the scriptures say, to he that knows to do good, but he doesn't do it, it's sin unto him. Starts to cause those things. But you still have to have that faith in the Most High, because the Most High already said, he said that in verse 10, who called upon him and was ever forsaken. At the end of the day, it's like, man, it's got to be more to this than simply, because that's the same, if you really believe that the Most High is bringing you through everything just to kill you, that's the same thing our forefathers said when they came out of Egypt. He brought us out of Egypt so he could kill us in the wilderness. Like, the nerve of these niggas. Why would I bring you out of Egypt just to kill you in the desert? Why would I deliver you out of this situation just to kill you under some other special circumstances? I could have applied the curses that I was applying to the Egyptians to you. I could have gave y'all the darkness and the lice and the flies and the frog. Why would I protect you from all that just to bring you into the wilderness and kill you? What sense does that make? So you can't sit up here and let yourself fall so far to where you get to a place where you're so faint-hearted, you don't believe the Most High has come to help you at all. Even as wicked as King Ahab was, he started to try to fast and pray and repent, and the Most High still showed him mercy. Now, I don't see that he was, or rather the scriptures don't indicate or imply that he was worthy of salvation, but he still got so much mercy. The only person that I've ever read that didn't get salvation that didn't get relief was the Edomite, Nicanor. He was the only one that it finally took him to, he was sick, he stunk, fell off his chariot. Then that's when he finally was like, all right, I'm ready to listen to the Most High. I'm ready to stop killing Israel. I'm ready to stop. But the disease didn't leave his body. That's the only person. But first and foremost, he's an Edomite who the Most High already says that he hates. Even on top of that, look at how wicked it said that his pride was far above even what a normal man would have. He felt like he was the reason for the mountains and the reason why the ocean was doing what it was doing. Pride beyond what's reasonable, right? That's the only person that I've ever seen get sick and the Most High was like, I don't care what you do. Are you any of those things? We think like the Most High is just waiting for us to slip up. But then here's my thing. Another great example. The Most High and Christ are one, right? Not in the sense of literally being the same deity, but they're unified, right? Christ came to deliver the message to fulfill the will of the Father. When the woman that was caught in adultery came to him, they said, we caught her in the very act. And ain't no question, ain't no accusation. We know for a fact, and we got an audience of people to prove it. If the Most High was just like, man, everybody that slips up, kill him. This is exactly how I want it. This is what's pleasing. That's exactly what Christ would have done. He said, all right, well, he that without sin, you go ahead and cast the first stone. And he started drawing in the sand. Slowly they started leaving, and then he gave her another chance. If it was always about catching you up so he could destroy you, oh, let me make an example. Scriptures say adultery, stoning. Okay, let's go ahead and dig a pit. He didn't do that. Go and sin no more. I'm going to give you another opportunity. The leadership was messed up. Israel wasn't being taught properly. Israel wasn't being guided. Israel didn't always have the law. There were so many Israelites that didn't even know they were Israelites. There was a civil war in a sense between Israel, between those who were born in the land and those who were without. Like they had their own version of a 12 tribes chart. You ain't born within these locations, you ain't Israel. The whole time, then the Christ was telling them, go speak unto the Gentiles, go help, go give this message to them. Not the heathen, not the members of another nation by bloodline, but the members of another nation by citizenship. Live like Paul, Timothy. Where do you think they was from to have names like that? But they were Hebrew men. They didn't grow up in Israel, right? Now you have, you have just some super strong Hebrew, the knife of Israel coming to you, and you ain't of the body, and this, and that. You be like, man, you ain't of the body, Timothy. All of those things were happening, but don't we see these same things happening today? People counting each other out, people denying certain ones are Israel based off of location, Israel being under bad leadership, and not only just from these different doctrines, we already have all these different, what are those called, denominations, right? All these different denominations that still have the Bible, all these different religions, but even amongst those that know they are Israel, you got camps that are teaching people that they can cook on the Sabbath. You got camps that are teaching people that sleeping with a prostitute is lawful, but, because it's like a transaction. Yeah. True story. You got people that teach we can't keep the laws in captivity. You got people that teach that you don't need to wear your fringes every day. You have all these different doctrines. Like, man, if somebody comes out of that camp and they've been influenced and taught, and now they're like, man, I want to learn the right way. You don't be like, hey, you done already made these many saying, hey, is there an opportunity to be able to give mercy to this person? Let's find it. All right, now you can go and sin no more. Now you can try and seek their salvation, because look at the state of our nation. That's what Christ understood. He was like, man, how am I going to come and I'm coming to bring a sword, but if I came to bring a literal sword to kill everybody who was in sin, there wouldn't be none of us left. Same thing today. Wouldn't be any of Israel left if all of us were dying as soon as we committed sins worthy of death while we were in the world, while we were without. Now we have the law. Now we have a standard. And now we have a guideline. You might not get put to death by mortals, but you go back in the congregation of the dead. You can't keep feasts and dwell with someone who's, a fornicator who's committing these sins. The scriptures say, mark that man and have no company with him. You can't do those things. But you still have to, Salakia. You still have to, you have to be prepared for all of those things. Because there are so many different spirits that we're dealing with, so many different personalities that we deal with, so many different backgrounds that we deal with. But as long as you're willing to repent, come one, come all. You were this, you were whatever, you used to sell drugs in the world, you stopped. You willing to keep the commandments? You want to obey the Most High? Get some understanding. Prepare your soul for temptation. So many people, because that's the reality, so many people are coming into this truth from those kinds of backgrounds. Street life, drug life, thug life. You have all these different things. Just make sure that you're prepared for what this walk really entails. Because it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not simple, it's not easy, but it is possible. We have a guideline, we have laws, we have commandments, we have statutes, we have advice, we have counsel, we have all of these different things that are given to us in the scriptures for, if we choose, that we can make it. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 2, verse 15.
Book of Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 15. And deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage.
Fear of death, all their lifetime subject to bondage. Everything is fear. That's why the scriptures say you have to have faith. You have to have faith, because faith is the opposite of fear, right? Everything that, mic test, pretty much everything that faith is, everything that fear is dispelled through faith. If you have that faith. You sit up here and don't trust somebody. That's an aspect of faith. Looking to be saved. That's an aspect of faith. And the crazy part about it is, talk about, that's one of the main ways that we build faith. We're literally waiting for Yahushua, the King, to come back and save us. You tell anybody that you are waiting on someone to come save you, they'll call you a fool. You waiting on somebody else to come save you. You waiting on this, you waiting on that. And how many of our people in the world have that mentality that you're a fool for waiting on those things? So you just going to do this. You ain't going to make no money. You ain't going to be out here on these females. You ain't going to be in these streets. You ain't going to be getting it how you living. You ain't going to be, you doing what? And it sounds foolish, but they're in captivity. All their lives, they fear these things. All their lives, they fear death. All their lives, they look over their shoulders. They're paranoid. They have all these different issues because they fear death. But when you're moving right, it's not to say that you seek death, but you have a certain level of confidence. Mattathias in all his battles, he had to have a certain level of confidence. Christ, walking in the city, knowing that the people were going to try to chase him out and kill him, had to have a certain level of confidence. Peter, Paul, the other apostles that endured, they had to have a certain level of confidence. Even, who was it? Was it Paul that was bitten by the viper? Man, any other man get bit by a snake, sermon is over. I got to get to a hospital ASAP. Oh, my God. He going to flip out. Paul was like, And I really think that you get to where you get to a point where it's like, well, if it kills me, then I died doing what I love. I died, more importantly, doing what I was supposed to do. I like war movies, right? Have you ever seen The Hurt Locker, right? The EOD specialists, they defuse bombs. And he asked them, he was like, man, with all the pressure, I think he was getting close to having defused like 1,000 bombs. He was like, with all the pressure, how do you do it? And he said something to the effect of, either I'm right or it's no longer my problem. Was that The Hurt Locker, or am I confusing that with another movie? That was Hurt Locker, right? So he was like, if I'm right or it's no longer my problem, should you cut the red wire or the blue wire? I'm going to go red. Boom. Well, you don't have to be around for the rest of that. You already gone. Your spirit went where it went. So the apostles, like Paul, had that level of faith in what he was doing. The Most High chose to kill me through this snake, then that's the will of the Most High. There's nothing I can do, because the scriptures talk about a man running from a bear. He gonna see, what is it? He sees a lion in the wilderness. He runs from the bear, gets cornered by a snake, and then he put it, or was it the serpent that gets him? Pretty much, basically, it's like you can run from this, run from that. You do everything that's in your power, and the Most High still got you, if that's what he chooses to. But I look at it like this. Even though we're at his mercy, we're also under his protection. It's not just every day you move with fear and the Most High can kill me any kind of way. Of course he can. But at the same time, he told the rest of the world, don't touch my anointed. All the things that are happening, the places that we're in. Just a minute ago when we started class, cop cars pulling up, and I saw a cop run over all this way. We don't know what's going on or what's happening, but at a certain point, what better place to be? Hey, what better could we be doing with our lives right now but teaching the word, but trying to guide and build Israel? What else could you be doing that's better than this, than trying to live right, than trying to give every day that you can to making some level of progress? You kind of have a little bit more of a peace with death and have a lot less fear. And prepare to endure chastening. Let's go to Numbers chapter 12. Like I said, I hope that it's all tying together and that it's all making sense. I know I'm going into a lot of different things, but like I said, it's so much more than just... And of course, now keep in mind, we do teach these things. They're more so amongst our body and amongst, our brotherhood, but we definitely do teach, being prepared, having, IFAC, having, a certain level of preparation, a bug-out bag, if you've never heard of that concept. Having these things to be prepared, because the scriptures tell us that we're going to be as nomads. And it says, Luke 21, talking about what was going to happen in Israel. If you was on the roof, you couldn't return into your house just to grab your things. That's how quick stuff was happening to be ready. So you see things like that, have a bug-out bag. Have a bag in your car that you carry around with you. Anywhere that you go, you have a certain level of preparation, because you have to be prepared to live as a nomad. I don't want to be a cold nomad or a frozen to death nomad. Let me throw some emergency blankets in there. Well, if I'm moving, I might not be able to stay by a water source. Let me bring some purification tablets. Well, if I'm moving, I might be in different environments and get hurt. Let me bring some medical supplies. You have to be bringing these things, but they're ultimately not going to be the only thing that saves you. Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. When they was hungry, it rained wafers. Most High provided for them. He sent quail into them. They was like, man, we want some meat. I've been eating these, these sweet wafers. I don't think they were they were trying to take an approach of appreciation. But, you still do miss what you're used to. And to a certain extent, the Most High is like, that's not wrong because I can give you more. He told David, if you desire more, I would have gave it to you. Ask for those things, but don't demand, don't disrespect, and don't belittle. Still be grateful. Because the crazy part about it is they had bread, and they had the sweet bread that was called angel's bread, and he gave them quails, and they were like, but the cucumbers of Egypt. At a certain point, you might not be pleasable, and that's going to be a problem with the Most High. But for those that are going to be grateful for those things, oh man, the Most High is going to provide for you. He said, the birds don't sow or reap. When the last time you seen a bird with a farm? No such thing exists. He said they don't sow or reap, but they're taken care of. Every day, the Most High is having those things happen. Somebody gonna drop a piece of bread. Somebody bust open a bag of chips. They not cleaning it up. Somebody's gonna throw something out the window. It's gonna bust apart. And here come the birds. Oh man, dinner, right? He said, if I'm feeding the birds that way, how much better are you than the ravens? How much better are you than these birds? Of course I'm gonna take care of you. Numbers chapter 12 and verse 3.
Book of Numbers, chapter 12 and verse 3. Now the man Moses was very meek, above all the men which were upon the face of the earth.
So the reason why I'm bringing this out, meek, the first definition, enduring injury with patience. That's the first thing. And I believe it was, I think it was, I want to, you know what, I might just look it up, but I want to say it was one of the Caesars. It might have been Julius, it might have been Augustus Caesar, where he said, you will soon find men who will volunteer to die, then you will find men who will endure pain with patience. Most people don't have a problem with dying. Most people have a problem with living. People, if somebody come to you right now, or even if the men who are rolling with Christ, today's the day we all gonna die. For real? How's it gonna happen? Arrows. They're gonna line up around us, they're gonna surround us, they shoot in arrows, we're gonna die, then you're gonna be in the kingdom. I think a whole lot of people would have rolled with Christ if that's all that was required. I gotta take an arrow to the neck, choke for a couple seconds, and I'm in the kingdom forever? Let's do it. It's gonna be over before we know it. But when you say you gotta walk for 20 years bearing your cross, look how many people actually make it that far. Very few. Then look at how many people make it to their physical death and still have a clean reputation, still are in the faith, still keeping the commandments, still following and obeying the Most High. Even fewer. It's so much easier to find people who will volunteer to die than is going to endure that pain with patience. So Moses was enduring that pain with patience, enduring injury with patience, and here's the kicker, and without resentment. Early in the truth, I'm reading the scriptures. I'm seeing all these things that Moses is doing, how the Most High is with him. I mean, it's incredible. And right towards the end, I'm talking about they about to enter the promised land, Moses was told to speak to the rock. Don't smite it this time. I'm going to give y'all water, but don't smite it. I want you to speak to it. And everybody in the crowd, here Moses going, whoopty, whoopty, whoop. And damn, it's taking forever, Moses. He got tired, he smote the rock. The water still came forth, but then the Most High spoke to him. That's not what I told you to do. He said, you know what? Because you did that, you're not going to enter that promised land. You're going to die, and they're going to, your bones is, what do you say about his bones? Either they're going to carry your bones or your bones is going to remain here. You don't get to go into the promised land. Moses could have easily turned up and flexed on, what you mean? After all this, and I didn't did. He was like, yeah, you're right. Went and told the people, went and talked to Joshua. Most High says I'm going to die here. But when y'all get into the land, these are the instructions. Meek. So that's one of the things that we have to prepare ourselves for when it comes to chastening, because let's go to Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 6. You got to be ready to endure it with patience and without resentment. How you mad at the Most High because he's trying to get you to get right? When you was a kid, was you mad at your parents for whooping you when you knew you was wrong? It's kind of like, man, you might have screamed and cried and all that other kind of stuff, but you kind of understood, like, yeah, I deserve this. How much more do we still have to take that mentality if we're seeking salvation? 12 and 6.
Book of Hebrews, chapter 12 and verse 6.
Uh-huh.
For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth.
Whom the Lord loves, he's going to chasten you. Let's get the definition of chasten real quick. To correct by punishment or suffering. Woo! You're going to have to suffer for that. When Jonah went the opposite way, he wasn't going to Nineveh, he said, all right, I'm going to correct you. I ain't going to kill you. He easily could have been like, Jonah's a wicked servant, lightning bolt. You in the water, you're done. It could have easily been that Jonah's, what is it called? His boat was flipped by sharks and he was ripped apart. Most High's like, I don't want to kill you. You're my servant, right? We got this relationship, but yeah, I'm going to have to correct you though. He got swallowed by a whale, spent 3 days and 3 nights in that whale. I'm sure it was hell and super uncomfortable. Actually, it doesn't say specifically whale. It translates it just says big fish. We really don't know what's in the waters because the oceans are very unexplored. We just kind of relate whale because that's the biggest sea creature that we know of. But it was something huge enough to swallow a man and for a man to have lived. Did Jonah eat for those 3 days? Did he have water for those 3 days? In a fish, it's always some kind of moisture. They have to have water in them to breathe. Was he neck high in water the whole time? Barely above, barely able to breathe, barely making it? Well, I don't know. But I know it must have been hell because once he got back to land, he was like, man, I got to get to Nineveh. I bet he was happy to go to Nineveh and tell them what they was doing wrong because the Most High sent him because he was like, man, that's way better than being in this fish. It says, whom the Lord loves, he's going to chasten. That's why we have those examples. You know what's another example? The curses. We look at the curses, we hear the word curse, we do see it as punishment, but the whole point is that the Most High is trying to get us to get it right. Every time we've been in prosperity, we didn't want to hear the Most High. We got into a position of peace and prosperity in the land, and oftentimes the people turned wicked. Oftentimes the people went in the opposite direction. But the curses are upon all of Israel to correct us, not only because it was a covenant that was made, but also you could look at your life and say, I want something so much more than what I found in that world. I want so much more for my kids. I want so much more for my spouse, my grandkids. I want to keep the commandments and obey because if I can't do it in this life, I need to do it in the next life. Read on.
For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourges every son whom he receiveth.
Go ahead.
If ye endure chastening.
Hold on, what's that first word?
If.
You know why that's important? A lot of people don't endure chastening. We was talking about, and it won't be a name, but it was just a hell of an example. A brother that, was close and dear, felt like there were a lot of things that he lacked or that he needed, ended up, really destroying his reputation, having a whole lot of offenses, accumulating a whole lot of things that have not been made right. Now he's in all the positions that he felt like he wanted. You can go as high as you want. No one's stopping you. You got you got the financial position that you want, but now look at all the things that you did to be able to get there. Didn't endure that chastisement. You started to, desire what you wanted more than what the Most High has commanded. Start breaking the commandments so you can get what you want. That's not enduring chastening. That's why he said, not only you got to strive, but you have to strive lawfully. He said, if you endure chastening, a lot of people don't survive that part. Go ahead.
If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you, as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not?
He says, so what father doesn't whoop his sons or correct his sons and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to? Last two, and we're going to call it here. The last thing is, we're just going to get 2 quick scriptures. Preparing to endure the path to redemption. Proverbs 18 and 19. Because if it is that you have slipped, if it is that you've made mistakes, if it is that you have offended, well, it's going to be a long road.
Book Book of Proverbs, chapter 18, and verse 19.
Uh-huh.
A brother offended is harder to be won in a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle.
So a brother offended is going to be hard to win over. So let's just say, right, as an example, purely hypothetical, you have an Apple Watch. I'm struggling with being a thief. You set your Apple Watch down to go to the bathroom. I pocket it. Have you seen my watch? Nah. You had on a watch today? Watch? You know how Israel do. Watch? You had a watch? Huh. Right. B then took it home. Then all of a sudden, I done changed the band on it, and I wear it as my own. You like, man, that's my watch. It got a scratch on the back right there at the corner. I remember when I dropped it, I was upset that it had that scratch. We flip it over, it got the scratch. You caught. Now, can you sit up here and have offended your brothers like that? Not only did you steal from them, but you lied to them. And now, if I come around you and you get the pocket and you put everything in your pockets, can I sit up here and be offended? Man, it's messed up. I know I stole something, but you ain't got to. How you going to be mad? A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. Your words might not even mean anything because you lied to my face. How could you do that? Well, you know what? It's going to take a long time. I can forgive you, but it's going to be hard for me to forget. You know, that's something I didn't think I was going to have to deal with. That's something that I didn't even think that I was going to find in this path. Slander somebody, you talked about somebody, clowned them for a long time. Brothers be humble, like, man, but like Taziawan, Izar, watching them come up, and I'm sure it's happened as well with Bishop Bonayat, but I've watched both of them have a lot of people mock them, disrespect them. Young Jakes, we out of pocket, we getting out of control, we way too comfortable. Jake's enduring it. It's not going to be foreign if your words don't mean something to someone after that much. Yet and still they can forgive and love, but it's still going to be, hard to win somebody over like a strong city. Might be that path, but that's the path to redemption if you want to seek it. Because what happens to a lot of people, they find themselves in a place where they've made mistakes and they can't handle the repercussions of their own mistakes. I don't want to be looked at as a thief. Well, you know what? Instead of trying to make it right here, I'm going to just leave. I'm going to go find another congregation. I'm going to go start a congregation. I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, and go somewhere where nobody knows my name. You didn't really endure chastening because your brothers are still offended. They still hurt. You still got debts accumulated, and you never made it right. That's the path to redemption that you have to be prepared to endure. You saw the example where King David was hit with a rock, right? King David's story is heavy. But the blessing is with the scriptures, because we get to see his life all at once. We see his before, we see his mistake, and we see his after. And we could say, okay, this is a righteous man who fell, as opposed to a wicked man with a pattern of wicked works. But it's still, look at the path that he had to walk. Somebody busted him in the face with a rock. And you don't think that he threw it was like, I'm pretty sure he wound up and really tried to give it to him, like hit him in the face. Damn. People around King David was ready to kill him. He said, nah, I deserve that. Woo. You got that type of humility to say, man, I really can't be upset. I deserve that. That takes a lot. Let's finish it out with this scripture. Lamentations chapter 3 and verse 39.
Book of Lamentations, chapter 3 and verse 39. Wherefore doth a living man complain, a man for the punishment of his sins?
She's like, man, how are you going to complain for the punishment of your own sins? For the punishment of the things that you've done, where it is that you have to endure those things. If you choose to endure that chastening, but that's why all these examples are given in order for us to be prepared. All the things that you're going to face, you're new to the truth, or maybe you've even been in this for a while, but you've made some mistakes. Man, whatever it is that's ahead of you, make sure that you are prepared to survive, to endure, to maintain the faith, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to seek and achieve salvation. Do you have anything you want to add up? Con. All right, then, Israel, I hope that this was an edifying class. I know I Well, hopefully it made sense. I know I could have gone the route with just gathering things up and storing, and that is absolutely an important aspect that I don't want to negate. But ultimately speaking, all of those things aren't going to profit you if your spirit and your soul, if your spirit is not right and your soul ends up being destroyed in hellfire. Those things are going to be unprofitable. So please continue to tune in with us through the classes that we have through the week. And with that, we say shalom.